When most of us think about magnets, toys come to mind. But Micromem technologies are using magnetic sensors to significantly impact industries across the world. With us today is Dan Amadori of Micromem to discuss the company. Dan, welcome back.
It's great to be back. Thank you, George.
You're on our show, but for all the new viewers at home, give us a couple of examples of how your technology may impact their lives, either today or at some point in the future.
Well, let me start by saying this. The company's 10 years old, but it's for 5 years now, the past 5 years that we've been developing this magnetic sensor technology. It's proprietary, and the applications are widespread across many different industries. So whether it's the oil and gas sector, whether it's the automotive sector, just industrial applications in general, biomedical, we've been active in all of those fields, and we're developing these technologies, as we say, to meet the unmet needs of very demanding customers for high-end applications, in a nutshell.
And in layman's terms, what I'm getting out of that is sensors are and are going to continue to be very important in so many things, and that's where you're really going to make an impact.
The market for sensors is exploding. You can program sensors to detect just about anything.
Right.
And when you think of it, sensors are really the engine that communicates information for processing. So whether it's, again, biomedical, or whether it's your computer, or whether it's your car, the applications of sensors are generic across the board, and they're driving information. The more powerful the sensor, the more developed it is, the better information communicated on a timely basis in real time. So it allows for better performance overall, whether it's, again, a medical device or an automotive application, etc.
And in a world moving towards smart systems, everything, smart homes, smart cars, smart hospitals, sensors, you're on the cutting edge right now. What's new at Micromem? Since you're on the show in February and you had a lot going on for you back then, what have you been able to accomplish since then?
Well, when we talked in February, one of the things we talked about was the difficulty of raising money in the small cap markets, such as where Micromem plays. We've been successful again this year in raising about $3 million. That's on top of about $20 million for the last 3-4 years. We have significantly, George, added to our intellectual property portfolio by virtue of the work that we've been doing. We've filed provisional patents, we've added claims, etc. But most significantly, since we talked last, that first customer. We've been talking about bringing this to market and getting customers. And in a number of verticals now, we are working with companies to bring products to market. Great progress made in that space in the last 6-7 months.
And commercialization really is everything at the end of the day.
It's the be-all, end-all, isn't it?
You can have the greatest technology and all the greatest ideas, but you've got to commercialize.
Right. Absolutely.
So, on that note, where would you be in your development stage right now?
Where are we now?
Right now?
Where are we at? I'd suggest we're beyond development stage. The process, when you think of it, is you respond to a proposal, you develop a prototype, you do an engineering prototype thereafter, you do limited run production orders, and then you commercialize the product. And you've got to meet all of these steps, and we've been going through that process with a number of companies. In particular, as we've announced in several press releases, an industrial manufacturer. We're at the stage now that they've accepted our product, and we're looking to build commercial units. We expect that to materialize in the immediate term. In the automotive, we have an oil pan sensor that is proprietary. Every component is proprietary. We've been working with a large international automotive company, and we're at the stage now that we're working with them and their tier 1 manufacturers to bring this product to a commercial look. So that's very exciting, and that's developed in the last 6 months.
And if I interrupt you there, a lot of people at home are probably wondering, well, why can't you tell the names of these companies? And what they may not realize is that a lot of times, until you get to that full-blown delivery, and a lot of the big companies don't want their names to be disclosed.
Well, absolutely not. And we have to respect that process and the proprietary nature of the discussions we're having, the confidential nature, the competition-sensitive nature. So that's you're spot on. That's always the
and I want to make sure
issue.
people home knew that, so I don't think you weren't just giving them the names.
No. The third one, though, if I may, because we're excited about the oil and gas sector. And we have developed a magnetic tracer that, in short, what it allows one to do when using this tracer and the nanoparticles that go with it, it's high chemistry, high science.
Sounds like it.
But it allows the user to take a look at that oil well, and in real time, with great diagnostics and accuracy, talk about the remaining life of that well, talk about the pressures, talk about the degradation of that well. In other words, in the past, if you looked at a well, an oil field, and said it's 2 miles long by 3 miles wide and 4 miles deep, you'd do an arithmetic algorithm and say the likely capacity, the likely remaining life. This gives you real-time diagnostics on site with that type of information. That's one of our applications.
And to speak freely, that's money.
I'd suggest that it is.
You can deliver that. That's money. Thanks, Dan.
Pleasure.
Parkinson's disease affects over 5 million people around the world. Cynapsus Therapeutics is developing a solution to help these people. Join me in welcoming Anthony Giovinazzo. Anthony, welcome back to the show.
George, it's a real pleasure to be here again.
This is a serious topic. Tell me what Cynapsus Therapeutics is and why it should be so important to everyone at home.
Synapsis is developing the only oral method of delivering the only drug that is approved to treat what's called freezing episodes in Parkinson's patients. And so they have this rigidity that occurs several times a day, and they in fact have difficulty moving and talking. And so this drug is the only drug that allows them to in fact get freedom of movement much more conveniently and much easier to tolerate.
And that oral solution, by the way, is a thin film strip?
Sure, George. If you think of the Listerine breath mints,
right,
it is a very similar concept. A 1 inch by 1 inch strip that's popped under the tongue and delivers the drug to the bloodstream in a very similar time and quantity as the injection.
This development path seems to be a very popular one, a very hot one. Tell us why and why you chose to go down that path.
So the area is actually technically called the 505(b)(2) regulatory path. It's of substantial interest today to institutional and retail investors, right, because it is shorter in timeline, so it's a much shorter time frame. It allows for a much lower hurdle from a clinical development point of view. And it means that there's already a commercial proposition out there. The drug's been sold, it's been approved, but it's a different way to deliver it. So it's not that long and difficult to gain approval for a new delivery method.
So where are you right now? Because these kind of applications can take years to develop. But where are you at now in that path of development?
So we've, a couple of years ago, met with the FDA, have gotten our guidance, and we are currently in the process of starting the third pilot study. So what we've done is taken a very gradual approach to de-risk the project. This pilot study will be completed and report before the end of the year. And then we have 2 more studies to complete, one in 2014 and one in 2015, early 2016, at which point the drug is approvable depending on the data from those studies. So it's not very long out to have a commercial proposition.
And yet a very intensive process. So it helps if you can start to get institutional interest in your company. And since we last spoke, since you're on the show back in the winter, you've attracted some institutional interest to the company.
Yes, we have, and it's because there's been 2 initiation of coverage reports by analysts in the United States. One by Zac's, Jason Napadano, whose byline on his report was an undiscovered gem. And Mr. Nathan Calley, who's a very senior analyst in the industry out of Noble Finance, who believes that the company has substantial unmet medical need with its product and has a significant potential of value in roughly this 3-year time period.
So am I right to say that you've got a dual process here? I'll end it off with this question, that on the one hand, you definitely want to generate value for your shareholders, but at the same time, you must have this parallel dream where you actually want to get there as soon as you can and start helping these people. So both equally driving you?
Both driving my organization, my people, and I 500%. We've all in the organization have relatives or friends or people that we know that have been touched by Parkinson's, and so getting the drug in a better, more convenient and more tolerable fashion is very important. And being able to put it into their hands through neurologist prescriptions is quite important, and we're working on both those paths.
Anthony, I want to not only thank you for being here, but I want to congratulate you for the good work you guys are doing at Synapsis, because it's great. Obviously, we're all capitalists, and that's why we're in these markets, but when you can serve a dual cause by actually helping people, that's a big win. So we really want to thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, George.
And we'll see you in the roundtable.
Absolutely.
It's rare to find a junior resource company actually turn into producer, let alone actually plan to start paying dividends, but that's exactly what Xcaliber Resources plan to do. Welcome, Tim Gallagher.
Thanks for having me.
So you're an emerging producer on the cusp of producing. Can you tell everyone at home what date you're targeting and how much production you're targeting?
Absolutely. So after a couple of years of basically going through the process of getting permitted, getting the explosive permits, the water permits, environmental permits, we're at the stage now where we're ready to turn on the switch and this fall convert to commercial production. And we've basically done a permit for 150 ton per day plant, and the idea behind the design is to grow it to 600 tons per day over the next couple of years.
Now, I've been pounding the table on junior resource companies paying dividends to their shareholders for years. No one's ever listened because I guess they've always got better things to do with their money. But here you are, you and your team are actually planning to pay dividends. Tell me, what was it for you that made you decide that that's the right strategy for you and your shareholders?
Well, two things. One, we totally agree with you that the concept in terms of the modern demographics is investors want to share in the cash flow. They don't want management to be buying an acquisition or expanding the plant without sharing some of the cash flow along the way. So that is the ideal investment in general. Specifically, there was in fact an emerging gold producer in Mexico that started paying monthly dividends. So when I saw that and connected the dots between the high margin of gold production in Mexico, then we said we just have to, emulate that story. And on the silver side, that's been done, taking these small plants and doubling them in size and then creating some diversified cash flow. So for us, that became the perfect story, to tell the gold yield story and not necessarily have to worry about what the gold price is. Obviously, if the gold price, goes where people think it'll go, then that'll just all fall to the bottom line anyway. But you gotta share the profits with the shareholders along the way.
Let's talk about gold and silver prices. Now, you said earlier that the strategy means you don't have to rely as much on the price of gold and silver, but you still want them to be at a healthy rate. Where do you need gold and silver to be at, if you have an idea? And more importantly, where do you see gold and silver 5 years from now?
So in terms of our low-cost production, we have to essentially prove the denominator. If we've got costs of 2 or 3 million, then if we can get as high as 10,000 ounces out of the initial plant, then we should be talking literally $200 or $300 cash cost.
Right. So that's cheap. That's for people at home who don't know. That's extremely cheap.
But again, if you imagine workers that are up to 10 times the cost, then that's really just the difference. You're saying if my payroll is going to be twice the cost, then I go from $300 to $600. If I've got brand new equipment, or I'm in a remote location, or I have the seasonality, then I'm going to double the cost again, and that's where you end up with the big companies, at $1,200 all in. In terms of our forecast, I guess we're trying to be agnostic about it because we're just trying to be a low-cost producer that'll ensure a good, healthy margin and allow us to share in the profits in the form of a dividend. But I think, like most people, I think we're in a pullback right now in terms of all the dynamics that are going with interest rates rising in the U.S. But over the longer term, and even particularly with the junior resource market getting hit, you're going to watch supply be constrained as well. So you've got increasing demand in India and China, as well as constrained supply. So clearly we have lots of potential for the prices to double.
Price on the way up. Tim, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to congratulate you for what you guys are planning to do for shareholders. I think that's a great idea, and I'm looking forward to your first announcement of your first dividend.
So are we.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with the roundtable.